Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into a really fascinating, almost mind-bending journey. We're going to take a hard look at the physical footprint we leave behind on Earth, and then we're going to contrast that with the beautifully resilient ways our human culture and memory actually respond to those changes. We're exploring what breaks down, what lasts quite literally forever, and how we process all of the whole shebang.
So let's just dive into this captivating thought experiment for a second. Imagine our familiar surroundings completely, utterly devoid of human life, right? It kind of feels like the setup for a science fiction movie. But by looking at the hard science of materials and the history of our planet, we can actually paint an incredibly accurate picture of exactly what this scenario would look like.
You know, this quote from journalist Alan Weissman's seminal work, The World Without Us, really hits the nail on the head. It perfectly establishes the core tension of our explainer today. We're looking at that deep, profound push and pull between nature's absolutely unstoppable resilience and the permanent, sometimes terrifying, scars that we leave behind.
Okay, section 1, A World Without Us, and How Nature Reclaims the City.
To really ground this thought experiment, we don't even have to guess what happens when humans leave. We can just look at a real-world example right now, Varosha, Cyprus. This was a booming, glamorous resort city that was suddenly abandoned during a 1974 conflict. And the stark contrast here is just wild. When humans fled, they left coffee cups sitting on tables and clothes hanging on racks in these huge, towering hotels. But within just a few years, nature began aggressively taking that territory back. Our decaying human constructs were simply no match for the vibrant biological life pushing back against them. Wild greenery, untamed flora, and thickets didn't politely wait their turn. No, they quickly snaked over walls, burst right through the solid pavement, and completely swallowed up what used to be a major tourist hub. I mean, trees literally began sprouting in the middle of asphalt roads and right inside people's living rooms. The sheer speed of the takeover is just breathtaking. So the absolutely crucial takeaway here is the unstoppable softness of nature. Just think about that for a second. You have these tiny, delicate seeds of wild cyclamen flowers, just completely fragile organic matter, effortlessly wedging into cracks and bursting apart hard cement slabs. And down on the once crowded tourist beaches, endangered loggerhead and green sea turtles actually return to safely lay their eggs in the sand. It perfectly echoes that ancient Taoist philosophy: the soft overcomes the hard. Moving on to section 2, the immortal plastic artifact. Because while our stone and concrete will inevitably crumble and be swallowed by the earth, we have to ask, what about the terrifyingly immortal legacy we leave in our oceans? Have you ever heard of a nurdle? These are tiny, multicolored, raw plastic pellets. They're basically melted down to make nearly every single plastic product on Earth. And today, marine biologists are finding them on virtually every beach across the globe. These indestructible artificial polymers are invading organic bodies everywhere, essentially masquerading as food. Because they happen to look exactly like fish eggs, seabirds and filter feeders are devouring them by the millions. Now, it is absolutely vital to grasp this fundamental difference. Natural organic material biodegrades, meaning microbes literally turn it back into carbon dioxide and water. But plastics in the ocean, they do not truly biodegrade. They photodegrade. The sun's ultraviolet rays just snap the plastic into smaller and smaller microscopic powders. It never actually goes away, it just becomes a deadlier, bite-sized poison. 1 billion tons. To put that staggering number into perspective, that represents the volume of plastic manufactured globally in just a half-century. And because nature simply hasn't evolved a microbe that can digest it, almost every single piece of that 1 billion tons still exists somewhere in our environment today. Which brings us to section 3, oceans of our debris and where it all ends up. So exactly where do these billions of tons of immortal plastic end up once they wash down our rivers and shorelines? Well, from microscopic zooplankton and the tissues of bottom-feeding lugworms, all the way to the stomachs of North Sea birds, plastic's reach is absolute. And perhaps most famously, it accumulates in places like the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. That's a swirling gyre of trash and microscopic polymer dust out in the ocean that's estimated to be the size of Africa. It is a haunting, undeniable physical reality of our consumption. Let's transition to section 4, art and ecological memory, and how we process all of this. All of this brings us to a really profound question. How do we intellectually and spiritually process this ecological violence while we're actually still here to see it? To explore this, we can turn to the Refracted Body film program, curated for the Liverpool Biennial. It traces how humanity leaves its mark, mapping this exact, tragic progression on screen. It goes from the violent extraction of resources to the displacement of native peoples, leading directly to the imminence of mass extinctions. It's essentially a mapping of our physical footprint, but viewed through the very human lens of emotion and memory. Listen to this powerful quote from director Tao Wen Fan. It so perfectly captures that tension between natural spirituality and violent human intervention. Her film explores the Mekong River. Now, this is a body of water that has long been associated with Buddhist mindfulness, but it's been so heavily dredged, overfished, and altered by agriculture that its very nature has been forever scarred and transformed. And we're seeing this sentiment echoing globally. Filmmakers all around the world are using their art as a literal form of resistance. Whether they're documenting the hazardous shipbreaking yards of Pakistan, or the Waimaria Tory people's displacement in the Brazilian Amazon, or even massive radio telescopes in Puerto Rico, sitting right next to critically endangered parrot populations. These artists are creating a collective, deeply introspective response to our planetary changes. Let's move to Section 5, a resilient political multiverse, focusing on Indigenous memory. How do cultures react when their environment is fundamentally, permanently altered? Observing these diverse histories impartially, we see artists employing incredibly beautiful cultural tools to dislodge trauma. They're using fables, animations, and sacred songs to reclaim the narratives of their environments and their ancestors. Basically, they're creating entirely new mythologies to survive the very changes we've just been discussing. These evocative mini-narratives show us exactly how cultural artifacts and rituals survive and adapt. From the Cucanaro tribe in Brazil rushing to pass down empowering, female-only sacred songs before an elder passes away, to indigenous Amazonian creation myths and voodoo symbolic drawings, these rituals form what you could call a protective, vibrational architecture of memory. It is quite literally how humanity heals. Change is the hallmark of nature. Nothing remains the same. As we've seen throughout this explainer today, whether it's the physical resilience of cypresses, cyclamen flowers breaking right through solid concrete, or the cultural preservation of ancient Amazonian myths adapting to a modern world, nature and culture both continuously, relentlessly adapt. So, I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to ponder regarding the true legacy of the human consequence. Long after the buildings have totally crumbled and the plastics have inevitably turned to microscopic dust, which of these will truly define our time on Earth? Thank you so much for exploring this deeply fascinating topic with me.